My name is Raji Sivaraman, and I am from Singapore, and I have a residence in USA as well. I have published 2 books, Making Projects Sing and Discoveries Through Personal Agility, worked in different countries and different industries, sit on international boards. Well, enough of me. Now let me turn the focus over to our guests. They are Emma Arnaz-Pemberton from Europe and Akbar Azwir from Indonesia. A hearty welcome to both of you, the influencers of PMO. Now, let me start with Emma. Emma, would you please tell the audience about yourself, then your journey with PMO and PMO Global Alliance, and also tell us a little bit about what you do outside of your work, please.
Hi, thanks, Raji. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Emma Arnaz-Pemberton. I'm the Director of Consulting Services at Wellingtone, a project management consultancy firm, and we are actually the UK partner of the PMO Global Alliance here in the UK. I'm a fellow of the Association for Project Management. I'm a member of the Spain Association of the International Project Management Association called IPRO, and also a member of PMI UK and Spain. So I get around a bit when it comes to project management. I'm a PMO specialist by trade, and I'm the founder of our Wellingtone PMO Academy, which actually includes a suite of training programs and community events for our PMO industry here in the UK and in Spain. I'm honoured to be here today and to be nominated as well as a PMO influencer by PMO Global Alliance. It's great to be here. So hopefully maybe give you some different perspectives. Outside of work at the moment, like most of us, don't do much with the pandemic and the lockdown.
Before that.
But yeah, no, I keep myself pretty busy. I have like 4 jobs. And yeah, spending time with my family is absolutely key, particularly at the moment. I think we're all craving that human community and that human touch to our lives.
Yes. Thank you so much, Emma. Akbar, would you please tell the audience about yourself first, then your journey with PMO, and then PMO Global Alliance, and also tell a little bit about what you do outside of your work, please.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Raji. A little bit about myself. My name is Akbar Azwir. I'm from Jakarta, Indonesia. I'm a director of MagnaQM. It's a training and consulting company in Jakarta that's specialized in project management and PMO. My journey with PMO is well, basically it started with when I worked in a mining company a few years ago, where I involved with a lot of projects in it. So outside of, but now I'm a full-time PMO and PM trainers, and I'm also a founder of PMO PI. This is the first PMO community in Indonesia, because we realize there's a few communities for PM in Indonesia, but there's no PMO communities at all in Indonesia for PMO. We have Global Alliance or PMO Global Alliance as the PMO community, but we believe that there's going to be some benefits for the local communities that will be the space for PMO professionals to be able to communicate and share each other's. So that's what we've been doing as well. Outside of that, okay, and outside of work, just like what Emma mentioned as well, there's too much work already, so I don't have quite a lot of free times. But family comes first. So whenever I'm available, always playing with my 2 sons is a bliss.
Very nice. Thank you so much, Akbar. Thank you. So Emma, Akbar, ready to dive in?
Definitely.
Okay, let's go. All right, let's have a chat about a lot of questions that are resonating around this topic, PMO. The angle that we are going to take today, just as a beginning, is agile and agility injection into the PMO world. So let me start with Akbar. Akbar, how do you think agile or agility will influence the future of PMOs globally? So once you explain, maybe you can expand on maybe if different cultures have a play in it, would you please?
Okay, sure. I think the question of whether the agile or agility will influence the future of PMO globally, of course, it will influence a lot. It will absolutely influence a lot, especially on the agility part as well, because the uh, 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 in the heart of the agility, or the focus of the agility for me is of course, is the customer, right? Because right now, when
Right.
when the right now, what's the most what's differentiate between the current condition, not the pandemic condition, but even before the pandemic condition right now, is that what's being differentiate between the current condition and like the 20 years, 15 to 20 years before, is that currently the customer is being well informed. Most of our customers being well informed. There's so many informations in the internet or whatever. They have so many information, and that makes them uh, uh, expect more and more, maybe, and that's also what makes the enterprises and corporates needs to be able to adapt to what the customer needs. And
what you're saying is almost all stakeholders, I mean, not just the customers, right?
yes, not just of course, almost all of the stakeholders are being well informed now, but however, the customer is the customer is the heart, right? The customer is the one that pays. Okay. So so like it or not, company needs to be able to adapt, to adjust to what they need. Oh, this is what you need, okay, so we provide you with that. And in terms of the PMO, of course, PMO also needs to be the enabler of the. For me, I think the PMO needs to be the enabler of the agility in the enterprise itself, on the corporate itself. Uh, there's uh, there's no way PMO can survive if it still becomes the red tapes, or being the bottleneck of the process. So of course, it's going to be affecting whether agility will affect PMO. Of course, it will. And uh, is it really different between the culture? I mean, like in the Eastern culture or Western culture, is it really different? That I don't think so. I mean, things are moving very fast right now, so I do believe that it's the same. So that's my opinion.
Akbar, please jump in. If one of you think differently, or one of you has an additional point, please do jump in. You don't have to wait for your turn. Just jump in and say, you know, if Emma thinks, no, the culture has something to do, please go ahead.
No, I think one of the points around influencing, the reality of most PMOs and most organizations for now is that they need to do more with a lot less, whether it's people, time, the human interaction, or whatever it might be. And PMOs need to be more agile with small a to help to influence that. And I think that is, you know, regardless of culture, I think everybody, regardless of what industry, what kind of business, whether it's big or small, has been impacted. And the only thing that we can really do is to learn to adapt, which we have done. I think as a global industry, all organizations have adapted enormously quickly than they would ever have done before, which I actually think is a really good thing, that organizations have learned that they can transform themselves quite quickly without waiting for that perfect moment, without, you know, having to wait 3 years of planning. that digital transformation, it happened whether you were ready, whether you weren't. And for most organizations, the world did not end. It was probably a little bit painful. So I actually think organizational decision making will be quicker and better and more efficient. And that is where agility is going to really help PMOs to support their organizations to kind of cope with that speed of change.
Looks like you're a sidekick, Emma, because the next question I was going to ask you is, do you believe agile or agility will eliminate the need for PMO, maybe in some geographies, industries, or are they different or unique? So you're too psychic. Okay. That was a question I was going to ask. Do you want to expand on it?
Yeah, I mean, will it eliminate the PMO? No.
No.
I think that PMO is absolutely still the heartbeat of change, whether the nature of that change is agile or waterfall or lean or something else, pick a method, doesn't matter. The reality is that organizations still need to change they still need their own change to be consolidated. They need a view, they need that single source of truth. They want and need that change to be assured, to make sure we're doing the right things for the business right now in the right way. And people still need our support and they need development. And PMOs, we enable capability. That's part of our role now. We are very much focused on people.
Absolutely. Capability is very important. Yes.
Yeah. And I think the key is for the PMO now to transform itself and its mindset so that it can deal with the differences in ways of working that we require, as we were just talking about, for whatever the future looks like. And that the pandemic is actually a huge opportunity for PMOs. We've been so stuck in our ways of, well, we do waterfall projects or whatever projects we do, that now is a really good time to take a look at what we need versus what we want or what we used to want. And really pragmatically assess how we can support our customers better to be more agile with small a, if that's what they need, or more lean, or more agile with a big A, or whatever else it might be. I think now is a real chance that we may never get again for PMOs to really look at the way that we've been operating and take a new perspective.
Now, when you talked about, the mindset and the capability, I'm so intrigued because just like you said, people didn't think that they could have the mindset to have the different capabilities that they're actually adopting right now to do all the things that they could have done even without COVID. But hey, it had to be the COVID to change the capability mindset, change the mindset to change the capability. It's amazing. I mean, I could see a gazillion tentacles to that particular topic. And of course, we don't have time for that today. So I'm going to go ahead with Akbar. Akbar, does every PMO become agile, do you think, or can they become agile? And of course, we were talking about the COVID and how people who were not agile, companies who were not agile did become agile. But whatever your answer is, whether they can become agile or if they cannot become agile, please explain why or why not, Akbar.
Okay, thanks. Before I answer that questions, I want to talk a bit about the mindset as well.
Yes, thank you.
It's quite interesting. I think in my point of view, at least personally, I believe that every person is already starts with agile mindset. Everybody actually.
Oh, really? You don't think some of them are set in their ways?
It's the condition that sets them to be.
Absolutely. Culture, condition.
Culturally,
yes,
condition
yes,
or the political conditions or
absolutely.
the whatever environmental condition that makes them prone to be more less agile. But I believe deep down we are actually pretty much agile. People are so human, are so there's a reason why adaptable. Right? There's a reason why human became the dominant species. I think because we are more adaptable compared to other species. So that's what I believe. So everybody is actually agile in the. There's an agile mindset deep down, but it's the condition that makes them less agile.
Yeah, I totally agree, Akbar, because if we think it's that nature versus nurture argument, isn't it? Is we all have the capacity to be adaptive, to agile, to like and not be afraid of change. But we're creatures made of our own experiences and what people have told us. And you're absolutely right. If we've been brought up to fear change, if we've felt change impact us negatively, then that's going to set a precedent, and that's how our brain is going to react. So I think we all have the capacity, but we shouldn't necessarily negate the fact that some people are stuck, because actually some people, they don't know what they don't know. They don't know any different. And that's where PMOs can and should have a responsibility to support those people.
One of the things that I heard, I don't know whether it was a video or an audio or something like that, a question was asked to a child who was less than 5 years old, and the same question asked to somebody who was 25 or 35 years old. The answer was amazing because a child does not have any of those boundaries, or, they don't have those social implications or political, constraints to say, no or yes. They just say what they say, and they just, and I think that's where Agile stems from in pretty much what Akbar was explaining, right, Akbar?
Yeah, pretty much.
Right. Now, Emma, is agility and PMOs, I mean, it's another form of question. I'm just putting it in another way. Are they friends? Are they enemies in your spaces? So what I'm talking about is whatever you have done, it's so far work-wise. What do you think? And would you be able to give a couple of examples, please?
So I think if we focus on training for the starting position, I think developing people is a real minefield right now. I think we need to relook at how we teach project management as a whole. I feel quite passionately that we don't see enough return on investment from training in our organizations. People are encouraged to be focused on passing exam or getting the PDUs or the time that they can log for learning.
Can I stop you there for a second? What do you mean by return of investment? I mean, I'm hearing so many explanations, so many definitions, and so many arguments about this whole return of investment. Can you expand on that a little bit, please?
Yeah. So by return of investment, I mean actual real value and change. If I go and do a training course and then I go back to my day job and I don't apply anything that I've learned, then the organization hasn't seen that return on investment. It hasn't seen the value or the change that I'm bringing, whether that's a behavior change, a process change, a new idea, whatever it might be. And because people focus, like I say, on passing the exam, as opposed to how do I then put that into my real world. So if we consider like the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve, that basically as soon as you leave a training course, pretty much 20% of everything you've learned falls out of your head. And if we take that to a day, then you've lost 40% of what you've learned. So the problem is with the way that we tend to teach is we teach to pass an exam, and then people get back to work, they get busy. And so they leave the course with really good intentions, really inspired, but actually they don't have the time or the capacity or the headspace to actually be able to apply most of that learning in reality to their organizations. And that's what I mean by return on investment is if I send somebody to go and do a training course, that I want them to apply that into my organization, because I've sent them for a reason. I've sent them because there's a gap or I've seen something. So it needs to be bigger than logging the time, or I've done this training, or I've ticked that box, and truly learning and expanding our minds and giving people the headspace when they come back to work to develop that and put that into practice. I'm a very firm believer that a course doesn't make you anything. Actually, it gives you the tools to be able to then go and get the experience to do that. And we've seen that during the pandemic where, and it's probably quite a controversial view, where, the online learning courses, there's been a 200% uptake in people taking courses, which is amazing. And it's great that people are taking the time to learn and develop themselves during these times. What has then subsequently happened is more and more courses have kind of appeared online. People are doing them, and then all of a sudden we're seeing experts suddenly pop up on LinkedIn because they have a certificate. Now, I'm a firm believer that a course didn't make me a project manager. Experience, war wounds, things going wrong, things going right made me a project manager.
Absolutely.
And I think that it's a two-faced coin for me. The first is positive in that actually it now means that skills that were unattainable, services that we wanted to give our customers as PMOs, we couldn't do because we didn't have the skills. We now have a real mix of skills in a lot of PMOs. The flip side of that is that people are coming back into the business and saying, I'm now an expert in this. And actually those skills aren't developed enough to really truly understand the nuances.
So what I'm hearing from you, Emma, is another angle. So two things that I'm hearing from you. One is that maybe this is the reason, I don't know, but maybe there is too much of technology. That's why people don't retain everything. They don't remember everything. That's one part of it. The other part of it, when I listen to you and when I'm hearing everything that you say, and this question is for both of you, Akbar, Emma, How about return of trust? Does that come into play as well? Because we all talk about return on investment. How about return on trust? And you know that it is measurable, and there are people who are measuring it. So go ahead, either one of you.
I think we've seen trust really develop very quickly over the last 6 months, because organizations have had to go from a very traditional, you work Monday to Friday, 8:30 till 5:30, you get an hour for lunch, where people have suddenly been at home, their children have been at home, they've been homeschooling, and the organizations have had to trust people a lot more than they've ever had to before. And I think people, you know, workers, we've responded in the adult way, and most workers say they actually do more, they get more done from working from home as opposed to what we used to do, because we don't have all of those different distractions. We do have distractions, but they're of a different form. So I think trust is absolutely is huge, but I think now when we come to learning, we need to take that trust and give them the trust to be able to actually say, right, you now are going to get the headspace to deploy whatever you've learned into the organization. And it's human nature, you know, the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve is very famous. It's just how our brains work. So it's about the trainers being more responsible at doing the right kind of training and making sure that it's not just about regurgitating to pass the exam, but really taking those skills. So I'll give you an example. Like at Wellingtone, we focused our training on project-based learning, which is where we do the training course. They develop a plan, for example. They get mentored by us as their trainers.
As in a live a company, or is it just simulation?
So we do simulation in the room, but then when they leave us, they actually have a project ready to go. So for 2 months, we will have calls with them to make sure that they're getting mentored. So
and that's an actual project, not a fake project.
Yeah, no, a real life change. That's real return on investment from training. So it's about making sure that people aren't just left alone after they've passed the exam, because I've moved on to my next course. I don't care about you anymore. And it's important to know that both styles of training and ways of learning are useful for both learning and teaching. It's about picking the right method for the right situation, which is kind of what we should be doing with our project management methods. It's don't try and reinvent the wheel and call it something new. We have lots of tools in our toolbox. Let's be smarter with what we have. And for me, training is the same. And the agile agility and the PMO in the training space, I think they need to go together, because just like our PMOs need to adapt, we need to adapt the way we're learning and teaching people how to do this stuff.
You feel this, Akbar? The reason I'm asking this is because I know that there are a lot of people who are measuring return on trust, and I don't know whether either of you do it. Akbar, do you measure it? Is there metrics that you use for return on trust?
Yeah. Well, sadly, I haven't done that before. I'm going to look at it after this.
Let's go ahead and look at Edelman.
Oh, okay.
I can send you the link. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Sure. But just want to add what Emma mentions about how we should change the way we train people. I fully agree, and the best results that we have is when we coach and mentor the participants after the training itself. And not just for the projects that they have planned during the training, but also the process on re-engineering the process, changing the way they work. It's going to be a painful process for them, because they will change the way their organization will they're going to face some challenges, and we are here for them. If the trainers are there for them, it will be easier for the participants as well. So that's what we have done, and we received a good results from that approach.
Awesome, fantastic. Now I'm going to pivot a little bit, Akbar. It's a pity that Hans could not be here with us today. We were really looking forward to his input as well. And hopefully Hans will listen to this. He is very excited to be here. But one of the questions that he was going to talk about and he wanted us to include is, I'm going to ask you this, Akbar, and of course, Emma, you can jump in. Do you think decision structures are needed in order to be successful with PMOs and, of course, projects in general?
Pardon, can you repeat the question again?
Decision structures, do you think decision structures are needed in order to be successful with PMOs and, of course, projects in general?
I'm not getting this disease instructor.
Would you like to answer that, Emma?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously Hans has done quite a lot of work in this area, which is why we really wanted him on this call. I think decisions, we are here as a PMO, we don't run the business. What we do is we support the business in making informed decisions, whether we agree with them or not. Sometimes we don't. It's important I think for PMOs to have something around understanding how decisions get made in the business, who are the influencers, that kind of thing. We need to make sure work a little bit that. But our organizations also have to take responsibility for that. I see so many that don't use any kind of structure. It's very much who shouts loudest, how decisions get made, and things like that. That I think we need to be able to support that, but the organization really needs to be responsible for living up to that and kind of that walk the talk, say, yes, we're going to have this in place and we're going to make sure that we make decisions in the right way. But very often,
but it's not just the organization on the top level. I mean, it's got to trickle down to the teams. It's got to trickle down to the departments. It's got to trickle down to, pretty much everything. At least in my experience, the projects that I have done, if you don't have a basic structure in the decision making, I don't think it really, you can't have it all over the place and everybody shouting at each other. So I really think that should be injected into it. What do you think, Akbar?
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I'm sorry, I wasn't.
That's okay. No worries. No worries.
Yeah, but I fully agree with that. Especially even on the team level, there's that needs to be a decision, an understanding of how decision is being made for, because especially on the team level, if they don't fully agree with the decision, there can be some unwanted outcome that could happen.
Yes.
And we don't want that. Just happens to me last year with a project where we do some migration, data center migration, and we already have an understanding of what the scope of this migration is, and one of the engineers feels like this is the best decision, and they just run along with his belief, and then unwanted outcome happens.
Yes, so, absolutely. And that just goes right into my next question, which is agilities, PMOs, all of this play a part in governance as well. Am I right?
Yes, especially governance.
Yeah. How do you feel in your industries? How do you feel in your workspace, or even the ones that you see outside of your space? I mean, you don't really have to speak about what you do alone. You can talk about what you've seen in other companies and, other huge conglomerates and, examples. You can give the audience, whoever they're listening, they'd love to hear about the governance part and how PMO's agility plays in that space.
Yeah, so I see quite a lot of this, particularly in the training courses that we tend to run, that people come in and they're like, I need to deal with the agile question. I really dislike the view that people think that agile or agility and PMO are mutually exclusive. So much so we have a whole section about it in our PMO practitioner course, and we regularly have speakers at our Future PMO conference where the global awards normally happens if we were able to do it face to face. But we often talk about this and the fact that, again, it's about changing the mindset, changing the perspective. Both agile and waterfall or whatever you're using are aiming for the same thing, and that is to bring beneficial change to the organization. And if we focus there, then surely people must be able to see that it's actually imperative that we work together with more open minds. And I always say, kind of, for those in the traditional PMO, don't be scared to get involved with Agile, get to know it, understand it, be present in the Agile projects in your organization. And for those who are in more Agile teams, maybe open the mind to what we're trying to achieve with that extra little bit of discipline and governance. It's not usually for our own benefit. It's usually because, the leaders need something from us. And the reality is most businesses, whoever they are, still need to control the start and closure of their projects. They want to do both of those in a controlled fashion so that we can at least see what's going on and where our money's being spent. So both teams need to see the why, and that understand and recognize that why is the same. Why we exist is exactly the same. And that's what should bind us together. And it's hard, but it's not impossible. And a lot of it comes down to what Akbar was saying around culture and what I was saying earlier about mindset.
Right. Akbar, how about in your space, the governance part of it? And of course, you can also talk about PMOs in the portfolio management space. I mean, in that front, that is also something that's, there are a lot of new things that's coming up in the PMO space, in the portfolio management front also. You can talk about that as well.
Yeah, that one is also quite interesting as well, especially in the portfolio management, where a lot of new approach or a lot of new mindset maybe on how to control the project is currently being the new approach being introduced, I think monthly or something, where the control aspect is more agile, where even the budgeting is also quite different. Especially if I'm not mistaken, there's no budgeting or something. So there's a, and for the governance part, there's an example in one of our banks where they actually create a separate entity to develop their own, to develop a new banking product, where this entity is given so much freedom, given especially their own governance system, where it's successfully it enables them to be in an agile environment where they especially on the banking industry is very rigid, but because they are a special entity, they are able to create something that is actually the first of its kind in Indonesia at the time. So I think a very different approach on governance in terms of business achieving business agility is quite fundamental.
But doesn't that tie into what we were talking about before, the digital transformation waves as well? I mean, the digital transformation waves PMOs actually ties into, in my mind at least, with the governance as well as the portfolio management, don't you think? Yes. Any one of you, Emma? Akbar?
Yeah, I think it's all intrinsically linked now. Like I say, the way that people had to make that move, it wasn't a choice. So that people have had to be more pragmatic. And we know for a fact that, the thing that PMOs have found hard during the pandemic is the assurance and governance and audit and stuff like that, with people maybe not being available or, whatever it might be. It's that's gone by the wayside. And that's why I think we need to take a pragmatic look of, for the last 6 months, we've managed without every single one of those boards and without every single one of those documents and without every single one of those meetings that probably could have been an email, and without every single one of those emails to some degree as well. So I think now's a really good time to really take stock and go, actually, we can be more agile with a small a and really take a pragmatic view at how we work. And like I say, it's not about reinventing the wheel. That's not where PMO innovation is anymore. I think it's about taking what we've got, whatever methods we use, whatever methods exist in our organization, and being smarter with it.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm not too sure how, I mean, this question is both for both of you, but I'm not too sure how it is. Like I said before, in my mind, at least when I'm working with all the companies and, countries around the world, at least about 56 of them, I find differences when I work with Indonesia, I work with Europe. I do find that when you talk about PMOs, I know that there is a difference between how it's run, what it entails. And, there are ways of doing things in, like, we were talking about, it's the social environment, it's the political environment, it's the, all of that influences. So I'm going to throw it out to both of you and just let me know, what is it that you have found in different countries that is different from another country? So I'm pretty sure both of you have worked in, with different countries. Just give me an example of how different it is and what can we do to make this a little more easier for people to work within countries like, I mean, Europe is so far away from Indonesia. How can we make this a little more easier?
Akbar, do you want to go first?
Sure. I think one of the I at least from what I felt, yeah, one of the main difference is the difference in communication approach, where
Very key, yes.
most of the Western communication approach is very direct, while well, for you, Raji, you're in Singapore as well, so you know that we in the southeastern, we're sort of like an
Well,
indirect.
actually, you know what? Even when I worked in Bangkok, it's completely different. Even though it's in Asia, and then I work in USA as well, and that I mean, in my mind, it's completely different because I have experience. So that's why I wanted to know both of your views.
Yeah. Okay. So at least in Indonesia, I see that the way we communicate here is very sort of lean into an indirect communication. So that's something that needs to be bridged upon.
How would you want? Do you have any idea as to how to bridge it?
At least the understanding. That we're using a very different communication approach. So at least an understanding is a good start.
Would you say that if you were to inject another person from another country, at least one person in the team, would that make a difference? Or if you were to have some kind of a team, I don't want to say training, but something to the effect where you are actually, immersed into a situation. So, for example, Latin America, they do things in a completely different way. And if you inject somebody, add on that person to that team, maybe would that make a difference?
Of professional is supposed to be not, but the dynamics of the team, of course, is going to be quite different. But then again, I think we can start from the understanding. Oh, we understand that we work differently. We understand we communicate differently. We understand that we're different. That's at least that's a good step for me.
Yeah, I think right. I think the understanding that not everybody reacts the same way to things, not everybody expects the same things. I think that's the first step. And I mean, I ran a PMO that went from being a UK to a European to a global PMO. With each step of that, we did actual training. We had almost like a cultural perspectives, so that if you were working with that country, don't send them anything because that's draft, because they assume it's final and they'll start sharing it. And we did it in a maybe quite a light way, but at the same time it did give people that perspective of that I see now every day. I have clients all over the place, and I have to adapt my style, and that's where the PMO role, I always say, is different to delivery, because we have the responsibility to adapt our style to work with our clients and support whoever's in those project teams to be able to do so as well. So I completely agree. And I'll give you a really recent example where, so we have our PMO community at Wellingtone. We have the UK one. We've had it for some years now, but we now have a Spain one, because we launched the company in Spain and we started doing our training courses over there. And just the way that people interact in those training courses is completely different in two countries, which are not that far apart. And I think for some people it was a real wake-up call. So I'll really,
when you say some people, are you talking about in Wellington in UK or people in Spain?
I think both. So we have people in both, but also I think for even some of the delegates who cross borders every now and again. So a really simple example is in the UK, people don't seem to like to put their cameras on now that we're working virtually. It's hard for the trainer, and I always say this, you know, when you're talking to me, I'm asking you to put your camera on because it's nice for me to be able to see who I'm talking to. And but in the UK, people don't like it. So I will spend 2 or 3 days with like 15 different black screens. And then when we did the course in Spain, as soon as people logged in, cameras were on, they were chatting. I didn't need to introduce anybody because they'd all made friends by that point. And straight away, it was just, you could see that the people in the course were naturally just a little bit more open, I guess, to the world of virtual working and things like that. And that's just a really simple example of neither is right or wrong. It's just different. But that's a really simple example that might make people think, oh, what's my experience been with having all these calls? But like I say, don't underestimate the power of doing a little bit, half an hour of be aware that people think differently to you. You know, I did a training course in Costa Rica, completely different again last year. Went over to LA in January, completely different again. So, you know, it's about being sensitive to that, understanding that not everybody is the same, but accepting the role of PMO as we have that responsibility. It's our responsibility to adapt our style to our environment and the people working with us, because they don't necessarily know about all that. You know, they're there to, in many cases, they feel
and then
I
totally agree. And then one of the things that I do recently, especially with this COVID for the past 6-8 months, what I do is every time I get on with an international team, and especially when they have not met each other, I just ask them, can you please tell me one thing that was a difficult thing or something that went wrong because of the communication or because of whatever it is, whatever example you want. So the first half hour, what I do is that you can't believe the amount of things that I learned from everybody, and not just me. Everybody learns because each one has a different experience of what went wrong and how they saved it, how they made it right because of communication, because of not emailing, because of emailing too much, or because of the tone of the email. That is something that I, you know, it was amazing to see how the tone of the email from each country was something that triggered all kinds of problems. Oh my Lord.
Yeah, like super direct. I got one email and it literally was like, hi, looks good. And then like it was all just letters after that, because it was all, everything was abbreviated, whereas other people were like, hi, hope you're well and your family's all safe, you know, hope to hear from you soon. But and people who do all capitals, I can't read those emails. All capitals and red, I physically can't read them.
Yes, but actually I'm talking about real terminology. So for example, in terminologies in the industry where actually it is different in different countries. So we're doing the same thing, but the terminologies that they use for that industry is different in different countries. And that to me was, I didn't realize there were so many different terminologies that people use. And some of them are direct translations from their country's languages. And that was even more, you know, confusing to people. It was quite interesting. And it still goes on in every.
Okay. Don't trust it, because we translated everything into Spain for our courses, and then we've had people from Latin America and South America on, and it doesn't make sense. Some of the stuff doesn't make sense, and you know, I'm sure you guys have that. You know, almost the regional differences are actually really important, that we don't necessarily think about.
Absolutely. Now, the next question I had for you is, now that we've talked about all of these things, is there anything that you have as a wiki or as a book or as anything for lessons learned for PMOs to do, not to do, how to become agile, or what is it? Is there anything that either one of you have that, or your teams or your, you know, industries, where you add on everything, the lessons learned, so somebody can pick it up and say, somebody had this problem, we shouldn't do it. We should be more careful.
Well, you want to go with that?
Yeah,
Akbar?
I cannot think of any right now.
Because I always do that, because what I do with my teams is I always tell them, guys, I need you to open up a folder. I need you to put these lessons learned there, because that is what is going to help us, especially with this COVID where we can't see each other. We're not able to, like Emma said, black screens. This black screen is not helping at all. So this helps, for me at least, it helps. So I was just wondering whether you guys had any other approaches, any other ways of doing it.
Yeah, so we tend to centralize everything we're a Microsoft house, so we do everything on SharePoint. Our clients generally, we do encourage that. I think what we need to get our heads around is that learning the lessons is not just putting them into whatever place you put them. Actually, it's more about knowledge management and really doing the analysis and making things happen. It's the difference between lessons learned and lessons identified. We've identified some lessons, tick. That's not what we want to do. And it's really interesting when we do research on PMO every year, and every year lessons learned or knowledge management comes out in the top 3 most difficult things to embed for PMOs. But at the same time, when we ask leaders what are the 3 most valuable things that the PMO could do, knowledge management is in that same space, in that top 3. So the thing we don't do very well actually is the thing that our customers feel that's going to add real value. And I actually think as an industry we haven't nailed this. I don't understand why. I think it's because we don't commit to it. We kind of talk about it.
But Emma, you're talking about knowledge management. So let me ask you this. So in my mind, correct me if I'm wrong, knowledge management, at least in my experience, knowledge management is one thing, but to transfer knowledge is even more important, because what happens is when a team, goes away, another team takes, or somebody is fired, they don't want to transfer the knowledge, especially when somebody is fired, they don't want to, transfer the knowledge. So how do you circumvent that situation?
You make it part of the day job. So don't make it end of the project or when people are leaving. Oh, let's suck everything out of your head. What we need to do is make it part of the day job. So literally what I've done is in every single meeting, I've had it before any other business, I've had what would we do differently from the last meeting? And so that we're constantly having that conversation, because lessons learned is one tiny part of knowledge management, and it becomes about how do we retain knowledge in business? How does that knowledge help us with our products, our processes, et cetera, et cetera? So I think, we haven't nailed it as an industry. And I think it's because we don't make it part of the day job. We make it a exercise we've got to kind of do at the end a bit. And then we don't commit to really improving things. We commit to writing them down, but that's it. When we get busy, that's one of the key things that goes straight away. So
I go one step further, Emma. One step that I do more than that is that I make sure that I ask the team, did you go and open up that folder and did you see anything? Can you give me an example? Because we tell them, but whether they do it, we don't know. So I always ask that, throw out that question as well. So I make sure that they open up that folder and see it. Is there any other way in Indonesia that you do, Akbar?
Yeah, I think I want to talk globally. I mean, it just come up with an idea. I mean, it would be very beneficial if we have some like a global lesson learned for PMOs that, you should do this, you shouldn't do this. But like for example, PMO Global Alliance have this kind of lessons learned, a combination of what different communities are being. What are the specific of every industry or locations wise. So that would be some sort of a good. I think that would be a good resources for a global community for PMOs.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the associations are working on that. So I know the APM, they have now their new APM hub, which is it's built almost by the members. So it almost runs like you can start a discussion or put a lesson. I know that IPMA are about to release a load of stuff in November. And I think lessons, yeah, we are trying to do that knowledge management on a more global scale, but it's like I say, it's getting people to commit to it and see it as an important strategic activity. That's what's missing. And I did a whole lessons learned few days with some of my PMO. So I chair the PMO SIG, specific interest group for the APM, and we were talking about lessons. So we did like a day's worth. We got lots of volunteers in to kind of try and figure out what the problem is. And at the end of it, we kind of came back with, we don't commit to it. It's not strategic. Egos get in the way, because at a senior level, people don't want to be told that they have done something's gone wrong if it's in that area. So egos do tend to get in the way as well, which is why they don't push that analysis. At the same time, we're moving into a world of agile. So fail fast is one of the key values of that, or principles of that. So actually, do we need to just move on, sumo should have
along with fail fast, you need to have learn fast too.
But yeah, I actually kind of hope that, like, we haven't nailed it as an industry, so I'm kind of hoping that the youngsters that are coming through now, I think they'll nail it. I think they're the generation that are going to fix this, because they don't have, as we were saying earlier with kids, they don't have the legacy of, oh, we tried that but it didn't work. So I actually think the next generation of project managers will probably be the ones that figure this out for us. Not that means we should stop.
So it's not just the fail fast, because I always tell people, yes, failing fast is good, but then you got to learn fast as well. Just failing alone is not good enough. Yeah, you can fail 100 times. Yeah.
The last 6 months we've learned really fast. So
okay. As long as that comes along with it. Yes.
Yeah, it's not.
Now I'm going to change.
It's painful, that's all.
Absolutely. Now I'm going to change the angle of our conversation a little bit. So far I've been asking questions. Now what I want to do is I want to change the direction, and I want to say, Emma, whatever it is that you want to ask Akbar, please do, and Akbar, whatever you want to ask Emma, please do, because I'd like you both to ask whatever it is that you want, because you guys have seen your LinkedIn profiles and you've got, you know each other now. Just ask one question each to each other. Okay.
I have a good question, which actually is not that professional, but I'm going to ask it anyway. If you had superpowers and you could go back in time and give yourself some advice before you joined PMO, what advice would you give yourself?
Super. And that's why she has that, whatever it is she has in the back. Yes.
Well, first of all, I got two advice for myself. First of all, buy Google stocks.
Good shout, to be fair.
Second is learn to do a proper public speaking, because I wasn't a good communicator. Up until 2 years ago, I wasn't even dare to speak in front of people.
We are glad you are here, Akbar. We are very glad you're here.
So of course, I would advise my younger self that, hey, you should be able to confidently speak in front of people.
Amazing. Yeah. Raji, what would yours be?
If ever I want to be a superwoman, since you said Superman, so superpower in a woman, I think what I would like to do is, again, I'm going to say, if I had a chance to live again, I want to make sure that I had the opportunity to make sure that for a long time, like Akbar said, I was scared to not just speaking. I mean, I always was not afraid of speaking, but there was a lot of things that I was afraid to do and embark on, but I wish I didn't have that, and one of the things that I think I still need to grow in is that if somebody says something to me and I know that I can say to them, hey guys, this is not the right thing, you should think it of this way, or the reality is this. I kind of, I'm a passive person where I say, let me not fight, let me not, maybe that's not the good thing, especially after coming from Singapore to, USA. And I see the complete different mentality here and how people work here and how people, show their, I don't want to use any words, but then I think that is something that I can, hone on, and it will do me good. How about you, Emma?
So I think mine would be to be braver. So I wasn't really that brave when it came. I had lots of things I thought I might be able to do, but I always thought there was somebody better that would probably do it. So in the world of PMO, now I'm really lucky that I work in a company that just lets all of my crazy ideas, they just let me run with it. I think I would and I would give that advice to anybody. If you want to do something, if you think about something, then just be brave and jump in. Because that's one of the things I think I came to it a little bit later than than most, maybe because of that.
How about you, Akbar?
Okay, so a question for me is to both of you is probably, what is one of your failed ideas that failed to execute, or whatever the reason it is failed, and what kind of lesson that you learned from it?
So for me, it came from one of my first proper kind of PMO experience, actually, where an organization, they said to me, oh, you need to build as a PMO. You do project management and program management and change. I was like, sure. And at the time, they gave me a blank check. So they said, do whatever you think. They just trusted me with it. And I built a Ferrari of PMO, I would say. It was an amazing PMO.
That was an Aston Martin or a Lamborghini?
Well, no, it was a proper Ferrari. But I think now, once I left, because I drove it, it was phenomenal, and it worked really, really well for the business, and it did all sorts of stuff. And I think now that I'm wiser and older, I would probably say the reason that failed was because when I left, there was no legacy. When I left, the driver, there was nothing. And in reality, if I look back now, they didn't need a Ferrari. They needed a faster horse, maybe. That's and that acceptance that with PMO, just enough is sometimes just enough, and that's okay. And you don't try to do everything necessarily, and that's really stayed with me now. That, like I say, now it's very much okay, let's figure out what do we actually need, what do the stakeholders and the customers actually want from this, as opposed to building what I think a PMO should be, because in every organization that perspective is going to be different.
Cool. Now, unfortunately, I've just been told that we are really out of time, so I'm going to wrap it up. So thank you so much, Emma, and terima kasih banyak, Akbar. Thank you in Bahasa Indonesia. And I think this was a great insight session. To all that are watching, I don't know whether they're in the private sector, public sector, non-profit sectors. I think, everything that Emma and Akbar has said about PMOs and their failures, their successes, their experiences, I think it will help everybody who listens. And thank you to Global Alliance, PMO Global Alliance, for having us here. And I hope Emma and Akbar have given you the different angles of food for thought. And on that note, I'm just going to say cheers, good health, and hope to see you all soon in person. Bye for now.
Thank you,
Bye, Akbar. Bye.
Bye.